The strongest hurricane to hit the U.S. in 13 years smashed into the Texas coast, then moved inland on Saturday, deluging Houston, killing at least one person, and bringing fears of disastrous sustained flooding in the country's fourth-largest city. More than 300,000 customers across Texas were without electricity as Harvey threatened to stall, setting up for several days of rainfall that could tally 50 inches 127 centimeters, more than 4 feet 1.2 meters, by Wednesday in some spots. Texas Governor Greg Abbott said about 20 inches 50.8 centimeters of rain had fallen in the Corpus Christi area and 16 inches 40.6 centimeters in the Houston region. There is the potential for very dramatic flooding, he said in an afternoon media conference in Austin. Our biggest concern is the possibility of between 20 and 30 more inches of rain in areas ranging from Corpus Christi over to Houston. Abbott expanded his declaration of a state of disaster by 20 counties to 50. Numbers of injuries and fatalities were not yet clear, he said. In the small seaside town of Rockport, which was directly in Harvey's path when it came ashore and was particularly badly hit. One person was killed in a house fire, the mayor said. The Coast Guard reported that helicopters rescued 18 people from boats and barges in distress. Dozens of Houston area roads were reported flooded. As of midday, 704 flight cancellations had been announced at George Bush Intercontinental Airport and 123 at Hobby, though a break in bad weather allowed departures to resume at Bush. Brock Long, administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA, said on Twitter that the storm was transitioning into a deadly inland event. In a Saturday morning update, the National Hurricane Center (NHC) said that though winds had slowed to a maximum 80 miles per hour, Harvey was moving slowly over Texas, producing torrential rains. Catastrophic flooding expected over the next few days. Map Houston, about 200 miles northeast of where Harvey made landfall, began seeing wind and rain on Friday. It is notoriously flood-prone and more than 6.5 meters people live in the metropolitan area. Though officials decided against ordering a mass evacuation from central Houston, voluntary and mandatory evacuations were issued on Saturday for parts to the southwest, near Two Rivers in Fort Bend County. Levels in Houston's bayous were increasing, giving rise to the prospect that they will burst their banks if the rain continues as predicted. This is just day one, Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner told Good Morning America. We anticipate a lot of rain over the next 4 or 5 days. Traffic was light in the city and many stores were closed, though an exception was a donut shop in the suburb of Katy, where Don Mock and his Keyshawn dog, Bo, were having breakfast. Mock said he was very concerned about Harvey. We got 5.5 inches of rain last night. That came down probably in about 4 hours, the 70-year-old said. That water can only go so many places. Oil companies began shutting down operations in and along the Gulf in anticipation of the storm, and gas prices rose. There was anxiety that Harvey could provoke flooding to hit the region's vast refining and petrochemical facilities and unleash toxic discharges into adjacent communities or Galveston Bay. Juan Parras, an environmental campaigner in East Houston, said he was worried severe flooding or a storm surge could cause leaks or dislodge chemical tanks. Mobile homes are destroyed at an RV park after Hurricane Harvey landed in the Coast Bend area. Photograph Gabe Hernandez app. When they move off their concrete base, all that oil, whatever's in those tanks, just goes out into the community, and we have a lot of tanks here, he said. We have almost a 52-mile stretch of nothing but refineries and oil tanks. Neighborhoods closest to the plants are some of the least affluent and most polluted in the region. The worst off will be hit the hardest, Parras said. Harvey made landfall near Corpus Christi late on Friday as a Category 4 hurricane with maximum winds of 130 miles per hour. It was the first Category 4 storm in the U.S. since 2004, when Charley menaced Florida. Texas had not endured such a powerful hurricane since Carla in 1961. Harvey was downgraded to a tropical storm after battering Rockport and another seaside town, Port Aransas. Reports indicated severe damage to infrastructure and buildings, including a high school, a hotel and a senior living complex where a roof collapsed. Rockport's Mayor Pro Tem had urged locals to evacuate and told the reporter that those who remained should write their name and social security number in felt pen on their arms, implying this would make it easier for emergency responders to identify their bodies. Corpus Christi police said road debris and downed power lines were widespread and that an alleged intruder was taken to hospital after being shot by a homeowner. City officials advised residents to boil water. The city of Victoria, 30 miles inland, was also badly hit. Shelters were set up as far north as Dallas. Harvey is the first major natural disaster of the Trump administration. Donald Trump's proposed federal budget calls for a $667 million cut to FEMA funding, but the president was eager to give the impression he was ready for the challenge. A flooded street while Hurricane Henry passes through Galveston, Texas. Photograph Brendan Smielowski of PGT Images. Closely monitoring Hurricane Harvey from Camp David. We are leaving nothing to chance. City, state and federal govs working great together, he tweeted on Saturday. A day earlier, Trump said he signed a disaster declaration to speed access to federal help. The president's attentiveness came after Chuck Grassley, a Republican senator from Iowa, warned him not to repeat the mistakes of George W. Bush, whose inept response to Hurricane Katrina in 2005 came to define his presidency. Trump should keep on top of Hurricane Harvey, Grassley tweeted, adding, "Don't make same mistake Pres Bush made W. Katrina." Trump responded that he had received Grassley's message loud and clear. "We have fantastic people on the ground, got there long before Harvey. So far, so good." Hurricane Harvey captured by International Space Station. Video. Coastal areas remained vulnerable to storm surge, while the storm also risked spawning isolated tornadoes. One appeared to strike the Houston suburb of Sienna Plantation early on Saturday, ripping roofs at dozens of homes. One conservation group, meanwhile, warned residents to leave some displaced residents alone. Alligators cannot stay in fast-moving floodwaters for long and seek slow water to ride out the storm, the Gator Squad said in a statement. "If you see a gator during the storm, as long as it's not in a road or knocking on your door, leave it be until the storm passes.